Birchtech is a provider of environmental solutions for the clean air and clean water industries using its proprietary activated carbon technologies. The company just reported strong Q3 financials with 41% revenue growth, 150% growth in its gross profit, and adjusted EBITDA growing $1.5 million to $1 million in the quarter, along with 1 cent per share in earnings, or $800,000. CEO Richard MacPherson is here to review the quarter, discuss milestones, and a bit of outlook into the coming year. I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. Please remember this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Richard, great seeing you again.
Yes, Martin. Nice to see you as well, sir.
All right. You just released your quarter. I put out a few of the highlights there. Why don't you give us a perspective on what investors or what you think people should be looking at most out of the results?
Well, the results were solid, as you know. Nice profitable quarter for us. One of the keys to the quarter, however, that wasn't stated clearly is that the license revenue that we used to become profitable in the quarter is a real hallmark of our core business growth in the future, because each of those licenses opens an opportunity for us to sell product to those companies as we move into 26 and beyond. So as great as the license revenue is itself in the quarter, the ultimate goal here is to sell through our product supply to all of these new licensees in the years to come.
So is that sort of an indicator when you're triggering these these licensing revenues, that is foreshadowing, call it, of future product sales?
Yes, very much so. So that opens up the door for us to replace their present supplier, which is what our core business is on the air side, providing that supply side service.
And those licensing, are those one times, or should we be expecting it to be on a quarterly basis, regular licensing payments, or licensing will come from new licensing partners on a kind of a one-time basis?
Yeah, so that was a one-time license base for all of the settlements that we had in the last quarter. Moving forward, we still are working with a number of different defendants on settling away the claims that we've made. So we do expect to have additional licensee announcements made as we continue to move forward.
Speaking of the settlement and the lawsuit, it hasn't been announced yet, or the judge has not come to a conclusion yet. That is clearly a key catalyst that a lot of people are waiting for. You were last time we talked, you were very positive on the outlook and encouraged by what you think is going to happen there. Can you give us any update on any events or anything new that's happened, or any perspectives?
Martin, nothing has happened to change our expectations. In the last quarter, of course, we did have another opinion from the Corp, which was very positive with regards to our claims and the position that the judge has taken on the overall case as it proceeds. But we're still now waiting for the final judgment, of course, which we have requested to be just shy of 160 million as compared to the 57 million that we were awarded by the jury.
The water business, this is your newest growth initiative, and you've had some good news on that. You've clipped some growing revenues out of that. Can you give us a little update on how the water business is going and how how that's ramping up?
Sure. So our core strategy, of course, was to start off as top analysts and developers in the field. And so we built out these two facilities, one in North Dakota and one in Pennsylvania, one a massive analytical facility and another which was a design center, which does reactivation of carbons as well as testing of water chemistry. Those two facilities combine to be able to provide engineering firms all that they need in backup to be able to provide their customers with the know-how to move forward in a strategy to attack the PFOS or forever chemical regulations that are coming up. So by setting ourselves up with that base amount of services, we've now been able to tie ourselves to some of the larger engineering firms in the country that ultimately put us in front of hundreds of different water utilities across the country. Our recent announcement, for example, with the large engineering firm CEC, which have over 30 offices across the country, puts us front and center with hundreds of different water utilities, and we then become the provider of the services that they need to figure out what their strategy will be going forward. That's great business for us out the door, but also what it does is puts us front and center as a supplier eventually of granular activated carbons to be able to build on those relationships and create customers from that relationship.
Oh, so this is really sort of a two-pronged strategy. You have your testing and your engineering facility. You get your domain expertise or experts, call it, and then you're in front of the clients, you're in front of the engineering companies, and then as you're doing this, you build credibility, and then your reactivated carbon services or products are you're kind of front of the line, so to speak,
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, well, when we've got the relationship, then we've got the credibility. So
Yeah.
then we're in line to both sell granular activated carbons, and once our facility is constructed, which we're still shooting for the end of 26, then we're able to use that for these clients to reactivate their carbons as well. And that doesn't even touch on the water treatment side of our business, which we announced our first contract on recently, 900,000. But the water treatment business in general will benefit nicely from these relationships that we're building with the engineering firms. And CEC was the first big one that we announced. We expect to announce several more in the coming months so that we build this broad base of relationship across the water utility business or industry, which will forego years of, traditionally building up a relationship in that industry took years and years. But by us focusing on the engineering firms that work for these utilities, we've been able to cut that time frame down drastically and become part of the mix right away.
Well, I guess in terms of the quarter, any other aspects of the quarter or the past months of business that you want to highlight before we go a little more forward looking?
Not really. I think it speaks for itself. We've been very solid on our costs. We've kept our costs down. We've increased our revenues. Our margins are very, very solid. And just a great overall solid growth for the quarter, profitable. So we're very much looking forward to closing out the year strong, but most importantly, focused on building strongly through 2026.
All right. So 2026 is just around the corner here. What perspectives do you want to give investors with on how you see 2026 unfolding?
Well, I see in general that the air side of our business will continue to grow. But most importantly, I think our research and development side, those labs with the new folks that we've got working, there are over a dozen people now full time, will actually become a profit center in itself and drive that side of our business. But also, as I mentioned, create those relationships through the work that they're doing there with the utilities that we will be relying on to build our sales volume, both on new product sales and reactivation as we move through 2026. The first contract that we had, the 900,000, was a start. We have a very strong pipeline of that kind of business, which we'll start executing on early in 2026. So I very much expect the water revenue side of our business will grow nicely throughout 2026. And we'll be making some projected revenue statements, giving some guidance early in 2026.
You announced that first contract. Are you going to be announcing every contract win, or you should, like, if we don't see a news release, does that mean you haven't gotten a new contract and we have to wait for the quarter? Or what kind of news flow and signals do you expect to be giving the market?
So we have a number of different sales, for example, smaller sales in that water treatment side that we've not announced that we don't feel are considerable enough to announce. We'll be announcing total revenues for that division on a quarterly basis as we go forward. And I think that
Nice.
will give people a sense of what the growth is overall as it occurs. But one of the big things that we're working on now, Martin, is setting up offtake agreements with people that now use granular activated carbon for our planned reactivation centers. Those will be very significant contracts. And so we will announce those as one-off wins once they come in. And those will, in the short term, be indicators of where we actually place our reactivation plants, because we want to be able to build the plant near where we've already got a guaranteed source of work or revenue. And so those would be very significant announcements. Now they'll be made in a timely fashion once they're materially sound. And I expect that we'll be in that position early in the first half of 2026.
And these offtake agreements, they're a little more, they're an input agreement and they give you their spent or used carbon. You reactivate it and send it back to them. Probably you need a buffer of additional material to keep the flow going. So, and that's what you mean by an offtake agreement, sort of a revitalization program for their carbon product they use for water treatment, right?
Yeah, so rather than sell new granular activated carbon, which typically sells in the $2 range, what we're specializing in through our reactivation center in Pennsylvania is showing with data these utilities how we can reactivate their spent carbons, provide them with a product back that got the 100% efficacy of new carbons, actually even better in that it's seasoned for the particular water type because of the chemistry analysis that we've done, and providing them back with a custom reactivated product for about half of what the cost would be if they were to just go out and buy new carbon. So that's going to start to take effect in terms of a real revenue stream once our facility is constructed and operating. What we're doing in the meantime is while the permitting process is underway, which involves a great deal of engineering work that is now happening behind the scenes, we are working on offtake agreements with large users of activated carbon. So once we have an offtake agreement in place that conscripts our services for that facility, we'll then move forward with a firm announcement talking about the offtake agreement and the location of the facility and give the economics of that facility. So we're very excited about that. We have a number of different discussions underway right now and are moving forward to conclude that business.
And with the air side of the business, are we going to be getting some guidance now that you've sort of signed up these licensing deals? You get upfront payments, but then the recurring ongoing sales of actual product will get a bit of outlook in the new year on how that you see that business developing?
Sure. Yeah. In the new year, in the first quarter, we'll be giving some guidance or at least a very strong indication of what we expect.
Yeah.
One of the challenging parts of that is even though we may have a contract in place or a position where we're ready to quote on the business, they still, in a lot of cases, in all cases, have a contract in place now that we will eventually, hopefully replace, but we don't have any firm direction on when that expires. So as soon as that contract expires and they go out for an RFP to replace it, that's when we step up to secure that business. But we can't control that. So we've got the
Yeah.
license in place. They've got the right to use it. We've got the right to quote on the contract. In some cases, we have what they call a ROFR, right of first refusal, which puts us at the front of the line or at the back of the line as cleanup to be able to come in and take the business. And so those will work out, we think, very much in our favor in terms of driving revenue on the air side in 26. But we just can't predict exactly when and how much that's going to be until we get those requests for proposal.
I think we've covered most everything. Is there anything else you want to highlight before we wrap it up here?
No, just overall, I would suggest that, with what we're doing right now and the kind of quarters we're reporting, that we do expect that this is a real turning point for us as we go forward to create some very solid returns in the coming quarters. And we're working diligently right now that the government is back to be able to facilitate and complete our uplisting onto the New York Exchange. So whether that happens this year or early in next year, depending on the SEC backup and how quickly we can get our review, that will make a tremendous difference in the position of the stock side of our company in terms of who's able to buy it and the visibility and liquidity and whatnot of being on a major exchange versus the OTC. So we're very much looking forward to making that step, and everything is in place to make that happen.
All right, Richard, thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
My pleasure, Martin. Thank you.
All right, have a great day. Talk to you again soon.
Thank you.